Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We're about to get started, so if we can silence our cell phones, as I'm doing, and close the side doors. Back door is closed already. Appreciate that. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are on the record. Today is Monday, the 16th day of June in the year 2025. This is a budget hearing for revenues and unclassified items with the Jersey City Municipal Council. We had a scheduled 3 p.m. start. The clock on my cell phone is showing 3:10. May we have a roll call for the commencement of this budget hearing? Councilperson Ridley.
Here.
Councilperson Hewlings is not here. Councilperson Baggiano is not here. Councilperson Saleh.
Here.
Councilperson Solomon. Councilperson Gilmore is not here. Councilperson DeJeece.
Here.
Councilperson Rivera.
Here.
And Council President Waterman. We have 6 council members in attendance at 3:10 p.m. In addition, at the time of its preparation, the notice of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 at 10:16 p.m. to the mayor, municipal council, business administrator, corporation council, and the local newspapers, so I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. Council President, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. So we'll just prefer, you can just follow your presentations, and if we have questions at the end, we'll ask. Okay, thank you.
Just have to turn it on.
Good afternoon, council members. I am Carmen Gandula, Finance Director for the City. With me today, I have my staff and CFO representing also the Administrator's Office to discuss the budget that was introduced in April and to have a assessment of year-to-date on where we're at. So, can't hear me?
Can't hear you.
Go up louder.
If you take it off or just bring it close, yeah,
All right.
That's
Yeah.
better.
much better.
Yes, finger. So we're here to, I'll do it again. Carmen Gandula, Director of Finance, here to have a conversation with you all today regarding the calendar year budget that was introduced in the April meeting. Today, we are having our budget hearing. Subsequently, we will have a public hearing next month. And with me today, I'll introduce my team that is here, the CFO, John Mercer, Kyle Gray's Assistant Director, and Danny Cylindra, the Director of Budget and Operations. Okay. So council members, going through the first page of the presentation, you will see the total city staffing totals. We have 2,856 full-time employees and 309 part-time employees for this year's budget. Next page, you will see from budget source sheet 11, the anticipated summary of revenues for this year, which is $744 million, about $75 million in anticipated local revenues for this upcoming fiscal year. Next page, we discussed and described the summary revenues, and on this page, you'll see that we are discussing our surplus and fund balance. You'll see in the chart on the right that we started with close to about $71 million, and we ended with a cash surplus about close to $28 million in this year's budget. And this information can be found on sheet 21 of the introduced budget that we had submitted to you in April. The next page is the summary of revenues, and it'll go through section A through section G. That goes through local revenues, licenses, fees, permits, costs. Section B is state aid, and ending with other special items of revenue. Under section A, under local revenue, you'll see in the chart that's highlighted here that we have approximately $48,258,79 of local revenue that has been anticipated in section A of this year's budget. Summary revenues for B and C, which includes state aid and our construction, you'll see that the state aid is about $65 million. Construction is about 8.53. We did include from 24 to 25, so that you can see a comparison under these budget sheets.
Does that mean, hold on, construction code fees, does that mean that there's less construction happening now? Because I see it dropped like 18%.
I mean, as for the construction going on, I'm not sure entirely how you would measure the volume of construction going on, but this is just the anticipated amount we're allowed to put in this year's budget based on the cash receipts from the prior year. That somewhat answers your question. It's a combination of different types of permits, so the construction code office probably better to explain to you what that is comprised of. There's a report that goes to the state, has a little more detail, and you'll be able to see the exact drop off in what fees from last year to this year.
Got it. All right, I'll ask them.
Next page is summary revenues, section G of special items. You'll see that we had about 19 termination of pilots that increased our net valuation to conventional taxes. We had an additional $10 million more in the amended franchise agreement and about $20 million deferred in from the JCMUA in 2026.
Do we know the exact number between the, how many pilots were terminated versus expired?
You can get that.
Exact breakdown of that, but most of them are expirations. Only,
Got it.
I would say the majority of the 19 that are off the books this year are expirations.
And do you know like a estimate of when they were put in place? Like I'm guessing 30 years ago or like, no, more?
They all vary, but we can definitely get you like a detail, that breakdown from
Got
tax
it.
collector. And moving on to the next page in regards to local summaries and local tax purposes, the city saw a tax net valuation increase of $1.6 billion from October 2023 to October 2024, which is factored into our new levy. So you'll see on this page the amount that is projected to be collected for this year for local purposes. And then the next page talks about our levy cap calculation, and you'll see the walkthrough how we broke down the levy cap calculation in regards to maintaining it within or under. So if you see here, we started at 368,302, 283,09, and then the maximum allowable amount to be raised for this year is 409,803, 444.30. So if you look at where it says under or must be within the 2% of the levy cap, we're definitely under that amount. So that is the explanation of the levy cap calculation. And then the summary of appropriations, moving on to what we plan to do with our funds or where we're going to be spending our money for this fiscal year. Most of our budget is going to be tied into salary and wages, employee health insurance, other making sure that we're fully funding our pension and contributions, in the library, and making sure that we're keeping public safety and the municipal levy in line with what we had proposed. So this kind of sort of concludes the presentation that we had. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, I'm keeping going. That order. So this kind of sort of, when it goes to the summary appropriation calculation towards page 13, that talks about where we're allocating funds and how this budget message was explained. So turning it over to the council members if they have questions or in support to this presentation or anything from our team regarding this year's introduced budget.
Hey,
I saw that the health insurance, employee health insurance keeps going up year after year. What can we do as a city to mitigate that? Because it seems like it's like a runaway train. Are there
So
programs for employees to make them healthier? Like do we know why it keeps going up? Is it just like statewide? Is it just,
so it's a combination of like kind of sort of all those things in regards to healthcare costs. And I do know that our HR department does put in efforts and programs, and initiatives for employees to live a healthier lifestyle. But at the same time, costs are going up, and costs did go up, not just in Jersey City, but statewide. Oftentimes, we do look for grants to offset some of those costs. And while we do still have grants in place, some things are changing that we are out of our control. What we can do to prepare, and what we have done, is we go out for special financing at the later half of the year to cover those costs.
because I saw that the head count went down slightly, but the costs keep going up, so I'm trying to understand it.
I mean, we're self-insured, so it's based on volume of claims and obviously the services that employees are getting, family members. But we also have a huge increase in prescription drug costs, especially over the last 2 years. But I will say we're trending at a less aggressive pace than the state health benefit plan. As far as options on affordability for the city, you'd have to do that through collective bargaining, getting some givebacks from the new contracts where employees go on, like the public safety, all the police and fire go on the Omnia plan, which is saving us on that front. Civilians still have the option for some of the more expensive plans, but a lot of the givebacks are done in bargaining, and but it's just the nature of the health industry right now is costs everywhere across not just the state but the country are exorbitant, and we're bearing that in the budget.
Do you think there's anything the state could do in terms of like negotiating for certain prescription drugs that, statewide to cap the price? Or do you have information on that, or would you be privy to that?
Not privy to it, but I know we do have some language where employees get generic drugs, generic brand drugs over, the more prominent providers. But it is a problem, and it's something that we'd have to talk to our health department and not health department, human resources department about.
The excess surplus, is this one-time surplus, and if so, how long do you think we have this surplus for? Like if this is on page 4.
Yeah, the surplus in the
Cash
budget
surplus.
is cash surplus. So our fund balance is higher, but you have to account for any liabilities that the city may have, deferred charges, and other reserves that we don't have the cash on hand. So that's just a calculation of it. And we have essentially what we do is regenerate the cash surplus every year. The last few years, we've used the majority of our cash surplus to stabilize the tax impact. And it's really a result of how this year goes. If our fund balance increases and our liabilities are taken care of and they come off our books, our cash balance will be higher at the end of the year, and we'll have the ability to either use the maximum or just use what we need to get to the budget in a stable position.
Okay.
Sure. A couple questions. Just going to start with the revenue side. Parking meter revenue is down by about 150,000. Do you have a sense of why parking meter revenue is down?
Oh, I mean, we have been monitoring that over the last few years, and the initial decline in parking meters was, I would say, back in 2022. We introduced Park Mobile in 2021 as well, which we thought would help parking meter collections when people would be more more willing to pay the meter through their phone or whatever the case may be, but that number's been decreasing year over year. We're not sure if it's a lack of enforcement or people are just smarter than us, but there is also the possibility that more tickets are being issued and going to the court for not paying the meters. So we don't necessarily have that exact analysis at the moment, but it is something we've been questioning the public safety department on. But
I mean, can the public safety tell us how many meter tickets they issued? Yeah, I think that'd be great to ask them.
Yeah, we can get that number for,
Great, thank you. I see also vacant property registrations were down by about 350,000. Do we have a
Yes,
sense?
so-
of how? Yeah.
yeah, this is one of these items that I believe these payments are due. I don't know if they're biannually, but it's just a matter of when the cash receipts are done. So if they're due in December and for some reason we didn't book it until January,
Okay.
it's impacting our prior year collections.
Mhm.
But it's just the way the accounting works for the budget, unfortunately, that if you don't get all of your cash in and all of your registrations done in December and they're done in January, we can't use that revenue in this year's budget.
Right.
But we're trying to figure out a better way to organize that where it doesn't have an impact on the budget. You'll probably see next year, there'll be a bigger increase,
Right.
but we could start taking the average, if this year's number is much higher, which it will be due to that lag, what we should do from the budget side is budget a little less than what we got last year, knowing that accounts for a little bit more from the prior year.
Okay. And then, it looks like there were a couple of things that we had fees for in 24 that aren't here in 25. And I'm just focusing on the ones above 100K, but those are tax sale fees, elevator inspections, fuel reimbursements, interstate waste, rental reimbursements, PV sewage rebate, Meadowlands tax charge, cable TV franchise.
So we're currently in the process of rolling out Edmunds, as the council knows, and what we did is we expanded on the chart of accounts. So while going through that process, we created additional revenue items, which you don't see in this year's budget, you'll see next year, kind of detailing the chapter of the municipal code a little more. And in doing so, I realized a few of these items are miscellaneous reimbursements where it's kind of hard to identify what exactly you're going to get year over year. And I saw that as a good opportunity to kind of start building back some surplus. So that's why you see some of those tax collector fees, rebates, scrap metal fees off of the budget this year. It wasn't substantial enough that it was going to hurt the budget. And the Meadowlands tax share, cable franchise fee, those items were moved to Section G special items with
Okay.
our other agreements. So when you go through that detail, you'll see those are new there, but
Yeah.
they're not, those ones aren't cut. It's just those miscellaneous rebates and things are just going to be
Got it. Okay.
surplus.
So the kind of the biggest thing, I appreciate those answers, but the biggest thing I'm just sort of noticing, right, is we're budgeting 41 million for the sale of municipal properties. Can you break down first just what the sale is?
So the large part of that sale is the sale of the Jersey City Medical Center. So that was a $75 million sale that's been executed. The city is receiving 34 million from that sale. The other portion is going to the JCRA. And the additional land sale in our budget is an offset for debt service, which is for Bayfront. So JCRA will provide us the cash, we'll pay the debt service. So that portion is just a direct offset, and the rest of it is strictly one land sale.
Okay, so basically to kind of summarize, it's what you're saying is some of that's the debt service, which is the offset. So really it's 34 million. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's strictly revenue, yeah.
I understand that. I guess my concern then is we're basically, we're using 34 million in this budget, and then what are we doing next year?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to our plan from a couple years prior, this particular sale wasn't necessarily on our radar to use in this year's budget. There were some smaller items that we thought would be closer to that number that weren't executed this year. The expectation is going to next year's budget, those several land sales will take place, and we'll have we'll be able to pull from different sales rather than just one. The exact dollar amount is yet to be determined, but we were thinking like 10 to $20 million this year initially in those land sales, and we could get you those properties.
Sure, that'd be great. But also, like, at some point, we're gonna run out of land to sell, so we might have some next year, but 2 to 3 years down, and you sort of, when we use the land sales to plug the operating deficit, you're just, some point in the future, the problem's gonna hit. You can only do it for so long.
I mean, that's correct. And that's why we try to plan ahead a couple of years and know when those things are coming off the books. The same thing with the pilots. We know our pilots are steadily going to decrease year over year. And we know we're only going to get a portion that in taxation. So we have to figure out other ways to offset that, whether it's regenerating additional fund balance or cutting operations a little bit year over year, or just not increasing it as much as you see year over year. So it's always just one piece of the pie. And as long as we're aware of what's going on and what our financial position is going to be in a couple of years, we should have a plan to address the shortfall.
And then what's just the timing on the budget amendment right now? What's your hope, and what are your thoughts there?
Well, we sent it to the state, so I mean, we'll hear back from them hopefully within a couple of weeks. And then we have a public hearing actually in July, which we have to advertise still. And if we don't anticipate any substantial amendments that would require another public hearing. So hopefully the day we do that public hearing in July, we'll have final approval from the state and we could adopt. But that's, again, we have to wait.
Okay.
So I have a question with regards to public safety, just to bring it back a little bit. The traffic division, it would generate some revenue to the city, but I don't want to say it's dismantled, but it's kind of like faded away, right? So, that type of revenue, I want to say it's kind of missed, right? Is there any way we could maybe commit to maybe entertaining, putting pressure on the director so that we can bring back that traffic safety division, so I can bring back some positive revenue amongst other things, but we're just talking about revenue.
With finance, we're here to support all those departments. I think from a performance and operations perspective, we do need to speak to the business administrator on how to support and to meet with that director with their plan. You guys heard their budget presentation earlier on this year and what was proposed and what we were going to do. Now we have the results of our financial statements. We have the results of what we can afford. And so the reshifting of the budget and the priorities have to kind of sort of come in line. So there are things in the budget right now that you want to look at and shift over from one area to another. Now's the time to do it. But ultimately, I would take this conversation, your request, back to the BA and the director in regards to what they need and what needs to be proposed.
Because I'd like to see that the restructuring of the traffic division, in the budget when we see it.
I also brought up during the budget hearings how the Department of Infrastructure is in need of more funding for staffing, more funding for, I don't think they have a speed hump contract. I'd really appreciate if we can make sure that they have the tools necessary in order for us to, make sure that the corners and the streets are safe.
Yes, so there should be an ordinance coming to council, hopefully next meeting, for repurposing of some old capital dollars. I believe it's going to be $13 million, and that's going to touch back to early 2000 ordinances, 2010, we did a complete review of everything and identified what projects have been completed, which projects aren't going to move forward. So when we bring that to the council, you'll see a bulk of that money is going to infrastructure, outside of some dollars for parks. But most of it is building improvements, street improvements, and just general infrastructure. So any contract needs that they may have, it'll be covered in that repurposing.
I know you guys have been working on it, and it's just really unfortunate, what happened. It's just, but definitely want to use whatever money we can to, fix this as much as we possibly can.
To a couple more. To that point, you talked about that being a repurposing of of capital funds. Is there an intention for a new capital offering in 2025?
No, we didn't plan for it for this year.
Just want to make sure. And then, connected to the budget, and this is more of an administration question, but, I received reports on Friday of notices of layoffs in the city. And I wanted to know if, based on this budget, that's anticipated, and if so, what the scope of that would be.
So when we prepared and introduced the budget, we introduced it with the staffing totals that you saw. I think as we're coming out of Q1 and going into Q2, and given some of the constraints that we're having at the federal level and now at the local level, if a job posting was posted and they were grant funded, unfortunately, those are tough decisions that were going to be made. We have worked with the directors in regards to helping them reshape their budget, but ultimately, if there are going to be any other additional changes, it will have to come from the business administrator as we look into tighten up some of the impacts to the budget. We were given a message to keep this budget very tight, considering that this administration is winding down. And so ultimately, there are things that we do have to measure. And the reality, I think, what it is in the fall, when you think about the city's cash position, I gave you a snapshot where we landed with page 4. Hold on. Cash, we had about 87 million. Right, if you look at sheet 4, right, we ended with a balance about 71 million, and we have $27 million in cash surplus. The impact that we have with the grant fund is that it's on our records, right? Like, we have a significant balance that we need to regenerate, and if something gets canceled and canceled and canceled, and I can't predict, that's the reality of it. So there's nothing official, but if it was related to tied to grant or some other areas, there was a decision to just kind of sort of tighten that up there.
Okay. And are there any things in this budget that are replacing lost federal grants? So anything where there was a position or a program where we think the feds are not funding it, but we chose to supplement and continue the program? Or was anything that we lost, we said we're not going to be able to continue?
Really, the grants budget, when you look at the city's overall grants budget to the city's budget, it kind of sort of augments some things. And we did make a decision last year not to create anything new. And so we did tell directors with their programs and working with our grant consultant was to look at what we had. You haven't seen anything like new award or anything of the sort. So it supported it, didn't kind of sort of replace it, if that gives you, a clear
Understood.
answer.
Okay, thank you.
We are on the 5-year plan track that you presented a year ago. Because I know you had to present in a 5-year plan with the state.
So when we did the COVID financing a few years ago, we did work with the state in regards to putting together a 5-year plan and projection. They can't legally hold us to it because we have to go through the legal process, but it was a plan. And so they have always given us a window to revisit that plan and to go back and review some of the items that we are proposed. So we'll be hearing comments from them over the next couple of weeks as it relates to this budget and what they're willing to accept and not accept. But it was never like a public document of a 5-year plan, almost like what I did. I mirrored what I did in community development when I would meet with you guys and say, here's our 5-year plan. That was a federal requirement. That's not a state requirement. I just tried to paint a picture for us at that time because we just didn't know what direction we were going into, and we were so late and other things, and having human resource capital. So I made it a point in 2022 and 23 to give you a roadmap that gave us a sense of ease of what was possible. But the state never officially accepted it because this is the legal process year over year.
We haven't received a overtime report in a really long time. I just, you can, after this meeting, if you could put that as an action item. Just want to make sure, see what we're working with.
Definitely get you that.
The grants decreasing from 6.1 to 1.5. Those the federal grants? Or is that just like, this is page 11. Do you know which department they primarily impact or,
So page 11 is just the, those percentage are the percentage of the budget it makes up. That's not the total amount of grant revenue that we're receiving this year.
Okay.
And so far, anything in the anticipated introduced budget, we're only allowed to put in the budget anything we have awards and setup forms for. So you obviously have the rest of the year to set up new grants, which will happen. And that number will continually change meeting by meeting. But last year, I believe we ended with having, if you look at the actual budget document on sheet 11 there, coincidentally, it'll have the total budget. I'll just read it out to you. So last year we ended with $44.3 million in grant revenue. And at the time of introduction, we had 10 million. So trend wise, yes, it seems like we're at a slower pace, and that presumably has things to do with the federal government, grant freezes, but that number can grow exponentially if we set up one grant for $5 million. So you kind of have to see where you end at the end of the year. Our grants director is staying on top of things. We have a new contract with GrantWrite for just
Yeah.
seeking grants and everything on the city's behalf. So that number will grow. It's just yet to be determined how much we'll actually receive and what prior year programs are going to continue to be cut.
Thank you. Motion.
Okay. I have a motion to adjourn this budget hearing at 3:41 PM made by Councilperson Saleh. May I have a second? Second by Council President Waterman. All in favor of the motion to adjourn at 3:41 PM. All council members present by acclamation, please say aye. We are out of here at 3:41 PM. Thank you so much, everyone present and everyone watching at home. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Still has one patch on.